Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 140. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have back with us the acclaimed author, artist, and game designer, Dirk Stanley. Dirk, how you doing?
Good. Hey, Barney, how are you?
Good, and welcome back, episode 140. So,
yeah.
And I have I'm part of your group, the Mere Anarchy group. So I'm really excited for us to talk about Mere Anarchy, your newest. Would it be appropriate to say your newest IP? Is that what that would be?
I guess it's an IP. Does a free IP qualify? Because it's free. I don't know. Is that an IP still?
It's intellectual property, because you do have some things on there that says, you can't use any of these images without blah blah blah. So
I guess you're right. Yeah, it is copyrighted. So and there is a little license and stuff. So yeah, it is my new IP. Yeah,
it is right. your brand new Simian Circle IP, huh?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So I was curious because I've been following this since right from the beginning, where you sent this thing. So give us a bit of a background it, and so anybody interested in hearing the first episode of where Dirk was on, click on the link below. I'm gonna pretend I'm pointing, and then I'll put it in post. I think they post it somewhere around here.
I can point
over there, around here, over here. But so check that out and learn more about when Dirk was on talking about his Faraway Land universe. And he just came out with the latest. Would it be a splat book? What do you call it? It was an expansion book. That was
you mean the Adventures in Materiosphere? Yeah, it was an expansion. It was an expansion book, but it was its own standalone. It's its own standalone thing too. I mean, it's like 400 pages, so it is its own. It has the core rules and everything in it, but it's Faraway Land in space. So,
so check that out. And is that available now?
You know what? It's not. That's how terrible that's how terrible I am at doing anything like business related. I'm like, yeah, I have a whole book and I haven't even put it out. And you know what? I haven't even thought about it, honestly, for like a month. Like I didn't even think about it. So yeah, it'll probably go up in a couple weeks or in a week or probably sometime in the next year.
That's good. Yeah, and it was a fantastic when we were talking about that. But we're here to talk about Mere Anarchy, which I remember when you first posted about this, you basically said, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said, I made this huge book, I made this new game, and then I realized that it can only be summed up in a couple pages. Is that about correct?
Yeah, that's sort of where it started. It was this thing where I was like, I'm going to build this dwarf fortress simulator, and I'm going to make it really like intense and heavy, and like I'm going to create tons of rules and do all of this. And as I started playing with it, my gaming focus was really on stuff that's rules light. I'm in this group on Facebook. It's called Minimalist RPGs. It's awesome. There's so many cool things that people make in there. Like every day I'm blown away where people are making stuff, and I'm like, man, that's really awesome that somebody came up with that. So elegant. So as that project was going on, like I'd written, 100 or so pages in the actual book, and I did all the artwork too. All the artwork that's on the Mere Anarchy page was supposed to go into that book. So that's why all that artwork is there. That was all the stuff I already had the book laid out and everything. So I decided I didn't like it, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to condense this down. So I took the 100 pages and basically condensed it into about a single leaf, front and back, tiny little rules light game that just sort of. Now that's not totally true, because like you'll see on the page that you've got up there's a bunch of additional content, expansions and stuff. So it's more than just a single leaf right now, and apparently it doesn't load, but
it'll come.
But so yeah, it went from about 100 pages to this little condensed, what I think is a very elegant little system, and it was largely influenced by another game that I saw. I didn't see this game on Minimalist RPG, that Facebook group. I saw it on itch.io at first. It's called Tunnel Goons by Nate Treem. And I absolutely loved Tunnel Goons and the mechanics that he made in that, and I thought it was just a really neat little system, and people have made all kinds of expansions for it. So that was sort of what influenced the base mechanic of where you have those different difficulties, 6, 8, 10, and then you roll 2d6, and you try and exceed those, equal or exceed those in order to be successful. So that's sort of how that game, how Mere Anarchy came together. It was really just an exercise in like trying to make something elegant, and it wasn't about really recreating or like doing something brand new or like just absolutely unique. I mean, it's very much a what do they call those games? Fantasy heartbreaker. It's sort of like that. It's very much fantasy. It doesn't really it's not like trying to redefine the genre. It's really just my exercise in like trying to take something that was really overly complex and reduce it into its sort of distilled elegance, where you can have a whole game with combat and treasure and monsters and advancement and character creation on one piece of paper, front and back. And it's not just so rules light that it's like, oh, there's really no crunch to it at all. There is a little bit. So it sort of falls in between like something that's incredibly rules light, like Tunnel Goons, and then something that's a little more complex. I think Mere Anarchy falls into that little space there.
So, if for your fans that are familiar with your faraway land, how would the systems compare?
Mere Anarchy is much simpler than Faraway Land. So everything in Mere Anarchy is handled with a conflict roll, where you just roll, you roll the dice to see if you're going to be successful. Whereas in Faraway Land, there's a bunch of different systems for different things. This one is really just based on a conflict attack roll. You're going to roll equal or higher 2d6 to whatever these difficulty scores are, and then everything is set up on that concept throughout the whole game.
And so where does this, one of the amazing things about your other IP, Fireway, is that there's immense world building happening in here. Is there, at what level do you do with the world building on a system like this that's meant to be fairly basic and elegant? How much of the world building aspect is mandatory or not to be put into it?
Yeah, I think you can play the game pretty easily. I know you can play the game pretty easily with just the core rules that you have up there. But there's a bunch of expansion books, and I don't even know. It's weird calling them expansion books because they're really just a single page. But they're broken up to where if you download the mobile version, it comes to about, I guess, 8 or 12 pages is what it would be. So there's like monsters and NPCs and magic. The one thing that I didn't want to do is I didn't want to create like big lists of, I didn't want to create a big list of monsters that are just pre-generated, because like everybody, right, you've encountered an orc before, you've encountered a troll, you know exactly what that is. So part of the world building piece to that was to just build a monster book that was basically a monster generator, so that you could generate your own custom monsters. So every time you're sort of playing, your players, if you're running a game, your players don't know what they're getting ready to encounter. And if they encounter something, they're sort of on the same level that their characters are, as they're ignorant of whatever it is standing in front of them that wants them to die.
Right.
Yeah. So there's the monster book, there's NPCs, there's magic, and the same thing with magic. There isn't really a spell list. It's really just a magic generator to allow you to generate sort of free-form spells, and then you to interpret that. Mere Anarchy is really open to interpretation. Very much so. It's very sandboxy. I think those are the types of games that I like. I like things that are very small, elegant, sandboxy. I like that sort of thing. I don't feel like I'm in a hallway. I don't like games where I feel like I've got so much stuff that I have to keep track of that I feel like that limits me. So that was sort of one of the things that I wanted to do with this, is just have, if you can think of it, when you were like a kid, you're like 6 or 5 years old or whatever, and you think of something and you're just like playing pretend or playing with whatever, you don't have a bunch of rules that you're like, whoa, I can't do. You know what? This GI Joe figure is not going to be able to cast that spell. Like, it didn't matter. Just do it. So
yeah, and almost like we always hear the kind of like the analogy, the difference between an amusement park and a sandbox. Where it's the amusement park, there's lines, there's set rules that you kind of have to follow to have fun. Whereas a sandbox is like your entire creation is up to you.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So my next question for you is like, at what point on here is like for those people that either want the one-off games, like, hey, it's a Friday night, and it's raining, let's play this, and how much of this opens up the ability to create campaigns and leveling up and things like that?
I think that with Mere Anarchy, I mean, there are some mechanics in there so that you can advance. Like, you can go up in level, and you get bonuses, and you get better at what it is that you're doing.
Okay.
I don't think that. So one of the things, well, I don't want to get off track. I don't think, as it stands right now, that you're going to see somebody in 30 years and they're like, we've been running this Mere Anarchy campaign for the last 30 years. I don't think you're going to see that. But I think for like one-offs and short campaigns, I think it's totally doable. Also, I made conversion rules for OSR games so that you can take OSR rules like characters, NPCs, and it's a really simple. It is actually one page, just the front of one page, and it allows you to convert over to Mere Anarchy really easily. So you can take any of those things that you want, and if you want to introduce somebody to, gaming, and do it on a little lighter level, you can still take your stuff that you have and then just convert it over pretty simply.
Okay. Now, so let me ask you, is like, because what was, how far down the rabbit hole did you kind of go on this? And like, meaning like, where did you, how far more, like, because it seems like every other week you're posting something else on the page, like, hey, I did this, hey, I did this. Is this more or less like, is there an end to this in the sense of like what you have like Far Away Land? Or is this kind of also like a kind of like a love letter to your fans and readers who are like, hey, here's something else I'm working on? Because you said you're making it for free. There's no monetary goal for this. So where's the talk about your process on this?
I don't know where that rabbit hole ends. I think that rabbit hole ends when I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of bored doing this. I want to do something else. That's where I hit rock bottom, and I'm like, new project. One of the things that's nice is that, and I'm super surprised by this, is that I put the little blog up in December, and the response has been really great. We got like 230 people on Facebook that are like following it, and we did a contest last month for people to create monsters, and like there's a ton. You were in that contest.
Yeah.
Originally you had that corn creature. But they're like, I'm surprised at the response. Like, it's been a really good response, and I think part of that is that it's super simple, and another part is that it's free and it's accessible. And I think that I have some energy behind that. Like, I'm excited about it. I'm excited to be like talking to people about it. I'm excited to like be making stuff for it right now. I think that even though like, I'm sitting in this like basement and I'm behind a screen, I think that like sometimes that energy does transfer to other people. So on some level, I know that it transfers to me when I see people that are like, this is super cool, I wish it did this, and I'm like, maybe it should do this. Like, it gives me that energy too. So I don't know, I don't have a game plan. I have some stuff that's getting ready to come out for this. Like, I have a couple new things that I have been working on. One of those things is a kingdom builder for the game, so you can like generate kingdoms and go through that whole thing and have events and like start the kingdom, go through the middle ages of the kingdom, and then decline and collapse of the kingdom and all that stuff, and it's done on one page. So I got some stuff like that going to come out for it, but at some point, it'll be, I don't know. I'm not going to be like, okay, it's Mere Anarchy in space. I don't have anything. I don't have any plan like that. I hope what people do is they're like, hey, I want Mere Anarchy in space, and they do that, and then they make their own little book, and then they put it out there and they sell it and do whatever, or they make it free or do whatever they want with it.
So do you see? Is this like you? I think you've said this on the way. Is this an open source gaming license as well? Then.
Yeah, there's a license. I should look at it before I start talking about it. There is a gaming license on that page, and it basically allows you. So you can't change the core content. So anything that like Simian Circle Games puts out, you can't go in and say, okay, this is no longer. You can't change the core content, but what you can do is sort of add to it. And then you can put it out, and you can like do supplements and expansions and make your own thing, and you can even do it for commercial stuff. I'm not regulating that, and I'm not going to be going after people. I wanted to put something out that like, I know that like, when I was a kid, I didn't have access to lots of gaming stuff. Like D&D was expensive. Like it was 20 some bucks for a box set when I was a kid, and it was expensive. And so I made my own stuff. I think we may even talked about this last time, but I just thought like, there's so much cool free stuff out there. There's so many amazing sort of creators that are making all of this free stuff. I wanted to like jump into that conversation too, and like put something into that pool of, free cool stuff that cool people were making. I wanted to be like, it comes back to that like, elementary school thing. I just wanted to be one of the cool kids.
Yeah.
That's what
you are one of the cool kids, Dirk. See?
Yeah, thanks.
So when you have you seen a lot of cross-pollination between your faraway land or that kind of are coming towards the Mere Anarchy IP, or do you see there are some new readers that are fans of the kind of like rules light, or the, as you said, like the elegant rules genre of followers? So where do you see most of the readers coming from?
I think that there's a bunch of new folks. Like I think there's been some like like there's some folks from faraway land that are like, hey, this is cool too. But I think there's a bunch of new folks. I know that there are new folks from other countries because amazingly there's a bunch of people currently like translating the game.
Right.
Like I already have the full version of all of the stuff that I've released. I think with the exception of maybe the oracles, everything's been translated into Italian, and I know it's currently being translated into Hungarian and into Portuguese and into Spanish. So,
wow. Okay. Yeah.
So all that stuff that'll all be up on the website as well. It's been a kind of a cool experience. I went on to an Italian game forum, and it's all in Italian. And Francesco Catenacci has been kind enough to do all of the translations for these. I probably butchered his name, but so I went on there, and like I've got this really cool translator that's online. It's called Deep L Translator, and it's been kind of neat because I've been able to go in and like chat with people, and so like I'm translating like what they're doing in Italian, and then like I can write and then like translate my stuff in Italian, and it's a good translator. And
oh wow,
it's been kind of neat because same thing with like the Portuguese. Like I was responding to people like on Facebook in Portuguese. Now I don't put a disclaimer, hey, I don't speak Portuguese. I just leave it out there so everybody's like, that dude must be super smart. That dude must be super smart. He can talk to these people in all these languages. And so I'm just using a translator.
So, now you mentioned it earlier, but talk to us about that. One of the coolest things about the group. So, anybody interested, you do have a Mere Anarchy RPG group that people can check out. And as you said, you got over 200 members on there. It's pretty active, and I like how how incredibly helpful and polite that people are in that group as well. And I love how you have monthly contests. So talk to us about your monthly contests.
You know what? I think one of the things that you said, everybody's like really polite and stuff. I feel like that's a big deal for me interacting online. It's a big turnoff for me to. One of the reasons that I don't interact much is because I don't like the negativity. Like I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to gravitate to people who are making stuff and encouraging people. I'm not going to gravitate to like all of the mess. So that's something that I really, really appreciate and love in the group. But the contest, so I'm kind of doing this because I'd like to generate some content for the game that's created by the people who are interested in it. So like all the monsters that everybody made, I'm going to make like a hall of monsters or something and put on the blog to where you can go in and look at like all the stuff people have created, or you can even download them to put it and play in your game or something. So maybe your corn creature will be there. I added corn as a one of the attributes.
Random monster generator option.
Yeah, it's one of the. I think it's in the revised version. It was I think it's one of the options you can have for like body type or something. You can be made of corn. I think it's in there.
When I did that random, it was like it has to be yellow crystals. I'm like, all right, let me try it. And like this guy looks like he's made out of corn.
I thought it was awesome. Yeah. I think it's in there. Yeah. So exotic body composition, number 45, you can be made of corn. And I did that as like a joke, as like when you did that, I was like, we should totally have everything doesn't have to be serious. Like it can have a corn body, and it can be terrifying because if you see a giant come out of the woods and it's made of corn and it's yellow, it would be terrifying.
I would be afraid of giant corn. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm terrified of giant corn.
So what did you yeah, there it is, I found it. Yeah, exotic body composition, number 45, corn. Yeah.
I think exotic body composition doesn't really even get to like if you had a body made of corn, that goes beyond exotic body composition.
So where did you get the idea to have these monthly contests?
Like one of the things that Minecraft used to do, I haven't played Minecraft in a couple of years, but I played it like when it first came out, when we were, and I don't even remember the game. It's where you punch the blocks out from under people. One of the things that Minecraft was constantly doing early on, and maybe they still do it, was they were just always releasing these updates. And I like that feeling of like, oh, there's newness. There's this continuous newness to whatever's happening.
Right.
And I don't have the bandwidth to create that level of newness on my own. So I was like, you know what? Let's have contests, and then I'll offer prizes. And I'll do the prizes as something that's like something that maybe people would like that has something to do with Mere Anarchy or gaming. And it'll also allow me to like explore some other things, like for the current contest for the Dungeon Maker. I sculpted a tiny statue out of clay, and it was an excuse to like, hey, you know what? I want to do a sculpture, so I'm going to make it as a prize, and whoever wins the contest wins a little sculpture. So it's sort of like for me to have a vehicle to do things that aren't directly related to stuff, but it's also a way for people to engage and for me to engage with people, and then also for content to be created. So it's sort of stratified or has multiple layers that are working.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And so my other question too, looking at some of this stuff, there are options to do solo play on this as well?
Yeah, and I don't have per se like a solo rule set, but I did put up the oracles, which are a bunch of sort of solo tools that you can use. I'm looking at it right now. So you can ask questions to the oracle, and then you can roll dice, and then the oracle will give you answers, and then you can use those answers to interpret. So you don't necessarily have to have somebody else playing with you, you can use the oracle as the other person that's playing. Because one of the things that I go to sleep to is listening to people. This is like I listen to weird stuff, like going to sleep, like H.P. Lovecraft and Clark Ashton Smith, like putting me to sleep. Generally, it's because of the person reading. Like I really like their voice. But the other thing is people playing like solo RPGs on YouTube. I love listening to them, and they're like going through this adventure and doing this thing, and they're talking about all of this. And it just, I was like, you know what, Mere Anarchy needs some solo stuff too. So let's build some oracles for it. And some of these things I've seen online and stuff, like that binary oracle. It's like a very simple, it has some modifiers, but and but as yes, no modifiers, and like a twist. And then there's like a complex oracle that allows you to ask sort of open-ended questions, and you don't have to just be stuck on like a binary thing where it's a yes or no. It allows you to like interpret these things. And then there's some plot oracles too, to where you can sort of generate stories and ideas. And the idea, the big thing was, pandemic stuff. I think that's when I started watching like people playing solo RPGs. And I've just recently got into sort of doing that. I got these dungeon cards from Matt Jackson. They're available on his website. And they were like these little, like just random dungeon cards that you can just build a dungeon with. And I did a solo RPG using Mere Anarchy a couple of weeks ago, and it was actually really fun, like to just sort of chill and like run some characters through and see what happens and like generate that story like that. I love this idea of procedural generation, like procedural narrative coming just from a couple little things.
Wow. So I guess my other question is that, so Mere Anarchy is now going to be invariably compared to Faraway Land in the sense that it's the same creator, it's the same level of illustrations as well, because it's you're drawing it. So
yeah.
For those that need some level of, just like consistency or their level of like clarity, is Mere Anarchy in one of the spheres in Faraway Land, or is this a completely different thing altogether?
Yeah, my thinking is that this is a completely different thing. I was telling my wife the other night, though, I was like, you know what? I should convert Faraway Land over to Mere Anarchy, like just to do it to where I'm like, I'd like to redraw like a bunch of the Faraway Land art and make it a little darker and less cartoony. Like Mere Anarchy's sort of the same style. It's still sort of cartoony, but it's a little bit darker. It's all black and white, and Faraway Land is like super colorful. And
right.
So I may, it's not part of Faraway Land right now, but I may totally I may do like a reskin of Faraway Land and offer it with Mere Anarchy stuff. I don't know, like the thought of that seems very daunting to me right now. Like I hate redoing things. It's like, oh, there's a new Microsoft Word that I have to learn, where I'm like doing the same thing over again. Refold these towels.
Wait, what about having like like you have your OSR conversion? Would you have like a Faraway Land conversion page?
Yeah, I am definitely planning to do that, to where you can convert Faraway Land over to Mere Anarchy. Yeah, with like a one page. That'll be really simple too. It's because Faraway Land is less rules heavy compared to something like an OSR game. So it'll be a really easy conversion for that actually.
And so for the folks that want to go to the go to the page, please check out, go to like mereanarchyrpg.blogspot.com is where they have this all on here. So all the downloads you have on here, how much of this has been like requests, or how much of this that you've created has been things that you wanted to put on anyway? For instance, like your OSR conversions or your oracles, some of your like the dungeon builders and the world builders and stuff like that. How much of this are the things that you were planning on making anyway, and how much of this is any of these just fan requests or reader requests?
Yeah, this is all stuff that I was planning to put out. Now I've gone in and changed some things based on like what people had sort of requested, like, or things that just popped up, and I'm like, that's cool. Like corn should be a body composition object. Or somebody will say something like, hey, this seems like it would work better, or and then I'll go and I'll be like, all right, well let's see here, let's test this. Or here's this idea and I like it and it leads me to something else and I'm like, this should be incorporated. I mean, it's a weird thing, like putting this stuff. I don't always work like by myself. Like right now I'm working with a friend of mine. We're doing a comic together, and it's a much different sort of thing where you're bouncing ideas back and forth with somebody to put a project together, a creative project together.
Right.
Whereas with this, it's like I'm trying to listen to these voices and allow it to influence me because I don't have a direct line of conversation with someone else. So
Right.
all you're getting is really stuff through my lens, and that I think that limits. I think that can be limiting to some degree.
So is there, and that's as you mentioned, where is, because when you put out that initially 100 pages, are you still pulling things off of that 100-page book to kind of add into as more supplements in this as well?
Yeah, that's where this stuff is coming from. Like,
Okay.
that's how I'm really able to generate it so quickly, is that it was already written in some form, a much lengthier form. So a lot of this is still that exercise of condensing. And the goal is to, whatever I'm putting out is to condense it down to a single front and back page. Like nothing, I don't want anything longer than a front and back page. That's still the goal. And so everything that comes out, even like, Battle of the Colossi, that's still front and back one page. Which Battle of the Colossi was actually inspired by a Clive. Yeah, that's it right there. Clive Barker short story called "In the Hills, the Cities." Have you read that?
Oh, with the city with, yeah, I think I know about it. Yeah.
It's a great short story. Anyway, I used it in class. I was teaching a literature class, and I was like, we've been reading. What we were doing is we were reading short stories from around the world, all 6 continents. I wanted it to be like the reading to be really diverse, what they were reading, and I was like, you know what, we haven't read really any genre fiction at all in this class, so I was like, we're going to read Clive Barker, and everybody was like, just like complete. It was like out of nowhere. One minute you're reading something about someone in this like failed relationship, and the next minute you're reading about these like cities like composed of like giants of people all tied together, and one of them collapses and you have like 40,000 people die, and it's like so anyway, that's what Battle of the Colossi. I was reading, we read that story in class, and I was like, you know what, I should convert this over and we should have like a mini game for Mirror Anarchy with Battle of the Colossi.
Have there's been any thoughts of turning these into like, say, like zines or anything like that, like zine level games?
I've been printing off copies, and so I think eventually what I'm going to do is I'm going to do I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say this right now.
My plan. Exclusive. It'd be an exclusive here.
Yeah, I'm sure people are like on the edge of their seat waiting for this. I'm thinking to do a Kickstarter where I make like little box sets for it, and I print off all the books and I put all the books together, and so you get this little box set of like 7 or 8 little booklets, and then you get some dice and you get some little pencils, and maybe I throw some maps in, and then you have this and you have a little box that, a little slide box that it comes in. I'm thinking to do something like that. It would be probably like a limited run, because I don't know. I mean, if I did a Kickstarter project and 500 people back it, I don't know if I can self-produce, like if each box has 8 books in it, I don't know if I can make 4,000 books on my own. And so I think that's what I'm going to do, is like make it as like a very tiny Kickstarter project where you can get like these handmade books and box sets.
Right.
And that's sort of zine to some, like in some way, it's kind of that spirit of the zine.
Right. Would you have, so I guess my question, because you're your artwork and your design is so easily, noticeable. Like it's easily identifiable. Have you ever made um, you know, you'd maybe make like Mere Anarchy made dice, or putting like the logo on, like, as you said, like a pencil, having like branded pencils and dice as well with that?
Yeah, I was excited because I was looking at these golf pencils and I was like, they can get customized. And then I watched somebody the other day doing an unboxing, and they had some customized golf pencils in there, and they were really like dismissive. They were really dismissive of that. I'm still going to do that because I think it would be. I like the idea of tiny pencils and tiny dice and things like that. But the dice for it, yeah, I would want to have something. I don't want to just like drop in some Yahtzee dice or something. I would want it to be something that's sort of everything's sort of connected. I think for the front of the box, and this is going to be something. So I bought a piece of linoleum so I could like carve it, and I did it in relief, and I did it a mirror image so that I could carve it out, and then I can like cover it in ink, and then I can like stamp the box. It didn't work because I think I used the wrong, the texture of the linoleum was wrong. I should have used some sort of rubber that was softer. So I think I'm going to have a rubber stamp made with a Mere Anarchy cover on it, and that way I can stamp each box instead of like printing something out. That's what I'm planning to do.
Right. That's awesome. So talk to us again to get back to your monthly contest. The first, I'm trying to remember. It's like, so January, the January contest was
monster, like making monsters with the monster. Yeah.
February we just finished. No, now February is the dungeon.
February is the dungeon contest, so get in there. You should create like a corn dungeon or a cornfield. Like dungeons can take a lot of different forms.
That's true.
Yeah, so this month is the dungeon contest, and then I'm thinking to do at least for a little while. I think I would like to run one each month. At least for the next few months. I have an idea of what next month would be. I think I want to do like maybe once I get if I can get the kingdom builder out here in the next week or so, I think it would be cool to have like a kingdom builder contest to like people can post their kingdoms and stuff, and like even like with an illustration or something. I thought that would be neat. I'm going to do some stuff like that in the future. I haven't thought that far ahead yet. I do want to get the kingdom builder out though, because especially if there's going to be a contest for it. Right.
And what did you? I thought you had a December one too. Did you have a December contest?
No, yeah, we had Dicember, which I thought was so witty.
That's what it was.
Yeah, it was Dicember. It was where you take a picture of your dice, like in some sort of pose or something. So several people got in on that, and they took it as sort of like a joke, which it kind of was. Somebody posted a die that was like covered in blood, and it had murdered people, and then like other people like sort of stacked their dice and like wrote things with it. I thought it was funny. So, and the winner of these contests, I mean, like, I know they're silly and stuff, but they do get prizes. Like somebody got like a core rules printed, and I wrote like a little note in there. Actually, everybody that entered the December contest won. My contests are very communist. But everybody won't win the monster contest. There's two winners actually. I think I'm going to announce them tomorrow. And they'll win monster books. And then this next contest, you get that little statue, which is a big step up from the monster book, I think. Like,
right.
I think,
see.
Yeah, it's
you got to raise it up a bit. So then what's the so for the kingdom one? Are you gonna take some sort of like glue some cardboard together and paper mache and like show up with people have like a castle made out of cardboard and toilet paper rolls or something?
Yeah, I think for that contest, I'm just gonna buy someone a piece of property. I'm just gonna buy somebody like an acre of land somewhere and be like, "There's your kingdom." Maybe that's what I would do as a joke. It's like, you can buy like property on Mars or something. maybe that's what I'll do. Is like, hey, here's your kingdom. It just happens to be on Mars, but like, or they have that thing where you can like buy somebody a piece of, I don't know, it's like a square foot of land in Scotland, so they can become a lord or something. I keep seeing these commercials.
What kind of TV do you watch? I've never seen those.
It's I think I've seen it on YouTube where they come in and like these people are unwrapping this gift, and it's like a framed, like some sort of framed piece of paper that says you are now like the owner of this 1 square foot of land in Scotland, and if you own land in Scotland, you're a lord. That's what they do, and like these people are very like happy to get this. They like, so that's what I might do actually for the kingdom contest. Somebody might become
a lord. Yeah, own land in Scotland. That's man, okay.
Yeah, you have to look that up. I haven't looked into it any further than those commercials, so I don't know.
So after that, so do you have, as you mentioned there, after the kingdom thing, what other kind of ideas that you have for maybe monthly contests? So if somebody says, "Wow, I don't know if I have time for March, but I'm really curious of what you're doing in May." So do you have kind of like a list in your head or a post-it note someplace that has ideas of your monthly contests?
I think there's some things out there. Like I like the idea of like spell books with like bizarre spells in them. Because things like that can be integrated into the game very easily. Like if like there's a contest where people are building spell books and it's like, so-and-so's tome of like esoteric, blasphemy or something. That's the name of the spell book. Somebody can pick that up or use it, just pull it into their game really easily. And also that doesn't take a commitment. Like I'm asking like for March, I'm like, hey, you need to build a kingdom and I'm going to need you to do it in the next 30 days. So I think some smaller contests might be more accessible. Like I know that's difficult to do. So, so I think that like the kingdom and a magic contest, and then maybe some like single page adventures where it's just a very quick like list of bullet points, and then you have like a very quick little like diagram drawn. Like that's the adventure or something. I think Mere Anarchy lends itself to that sort of thing because you don't have to have a bunch of monsters mapped out. You can just like be like, oh, this is a easy level monster, or this is a medium or a hard, and like you automatically know what those stats are and all that stuff. So
let's jump in and get some the advice giving part of the interview. So what would you say, so Dirk, for someone who's listening is like, hey, I designed this game, or I designed this, this comic or this world that I've created, whether it be through a fantasy novel or through a made a game. This is like, and they're obviously they're their own biggest fans. They should be if they're, but then like what would be the advice you would give them to say, how do you build a community who is looking forward to the stuff that I'm creating? What would be your advice to that?
I think that I don't know. That's a good question, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure of that. I don't know. I don't think I'm good at building community. I think that like I think one thing to do is like create an atmosphere where people feel like they're part of something, and that they have a say in something. I think also like an atmosphere of like respect and something that's welcoming. I mean, if they go to your Facebook page and everybody's like at each other's throats, like I think encouraging people to like when they're making stuff, like if they're building stuff or they're showing stuff off. One of the things that I notice on the internet is it seems like there's this like sort of idea of perfection because we're exposed to so much stuff. So when I see somebody painting Warhammer miniatures, I'm like, man, that looks crazy good. And then I look at the stuff I've painted and I'm like, that doesn't look crazy good. And I think that like it's sort of that thing when you're sitting in a room and there's 15 people in there and those people are all experts, you're sort of comparing yourself to the collective as opposed to like individuals in the collective. And I think that's what happens when we get bombarded with stuff we see on like social media where we're like, wow, everybody that's doing this is an expert, and that's not necessarily the case. I think so. I'm a big advocate of like make stuff, put stuff out there. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like perfection is like this unattainable thing. I think just making stuff, putting stuff out there, gravitating to people who are encouraging and positive, and then you sort of reciprocating and doing that same thing. I think that's a big deal when it goes to like building community. I think that I think tearing people down and like dumping on stuff that people have made, I think that's the opposite of doing that. And you know, sometimes you can be critical of stuff. Generally, I'm not critical of stuff because the stuff that I'm not critical of, I just don't talk about. If I'm going to be critical of it, I just, you know, I'll be critical with my friends, but I just don't do it online. I just,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's even advice. I don't even know, like, you know, make stuff, put it out there, find people who are interested and support those people. And then hopefully those people reciprocate. And I do think that what you create, if it has value to it, there will be people that like gravitate to it. I definitely think that. And I think making it accessible to people. If I made like, hey, if I started Mere Anarchy with, I'm going to do a Kickstarter and I want to raise $15,000, I probably wouldn't have anybody that cares about Mere Anarchy. But right. It's free.
And it's almost to the point, what I love about this, about the group you've created. So anybody's interested, it's not, you know, it's on Facebook, Mere Anarchy RPG. Look it up. And I think you probably have a hyperlink to it on the website as well.
Mm-hmm.
The blog. Yeah. So what I love about this, what reminds me of it, you see this a lot with, like, say, video games, for instance, where you have alphas. Like, this game is an alpha, this game is in beta, and then paying for that game, you become part of the process of feedback, and you feel like you automatically kind of joined a club in a community. This is the first time I've seen this with a game, like almost like a tabletop game, in the sense where, like, you're asking people, hey, what do you think? Give me feedback. And I see that all the time that you've put in the group, on the Facebook group. You're like, hey, I'm trying this out. What do you think? And then people sometimes will comment on that and say, hey, I like this, I like that. Yeah. And then you have some folks who just, you know, go, you know, just jump right into it. Like, hey, I got this idea. Of, like, one gentleman in the group who seems to always like to post some things. I actually, like, sent him a friend request the other day. I'm like, this guy's awesome. Like, it's so fun to be a part of to see people chatting and talking to each other a lot. And Lore Forge Meister, that's the one who.
Oh yeah, he created all kinds of. He put up all kinds of artwork on the Facebook page. There's a ton of stuff that he just made available, and I was like, wow, that's awesome. Thanks. I love that. Like, and the stuff's really good too.
Right. And then you have, you know, folks that are doing their own artwork, and some that are like Dirk Stanley inspired. Gothridge Manor put out his Beast of the Blood Diamonds book. It's like, this is, and I think what I love about, and this has something to do with not even like how you're kind of you're welcoming, but also is like your artwork and your games are accessible to all ages in that sense. So you do create this kind of like a family friendly atmosphere in a way but what I like about it as well is that, as you mentioned, Mere Anarchy is a bit older and darker in a way. Then it's almost like it's a graduation of people who kind of been playing your Far Away Land. It's like, all right, I want something that's more of, has that dark humor to it. So, which is pretty cool as well. So,
yeah, I hadn't thought of that. I mean, the goal for Far Away Land, honestly, was I wanted to make something very like cartoony and innocent looking, and then make it ultra violent. But over time that changed, because I was getting pictures people sent me from, like, they were playing it with their kids and they were using it in classrooms, and I was like, hold up, like, maybe I should go in a direction that it's not so, like, do I want to, like, that's sort of what I asked myself. Do I want to put something out that, like, if kids are seeing it, even if it is like a purple rabbit that's eating someone and there's like blood going everywhere and it's super cartoony, do I want to do that necessarily? Like, I feel like, and I only feel like this for me, I don't feel like this for everybody, is that I think what's going out, there's some responsibility for the creator to what they're creating. And I'm not trying to say like, like you shouldn't do that, or you should, or whatever. It was just for me, I just eventually made a decision. I was like, at least for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull back on the, people being decapitated, although that still plays into it. But it's funny because it's like a cartoon. So I don't know. Yeah. Right. It's probably hypocritical what I'm talking about.
So yeah, we're at our hour mark already, Dirk. So that was pretty quick. So
it was quick.
Yeah, so please, so anybody listening or watching, so mereanarchyrpg.blogspot.com is where you can find Mere Anarchy the RPG. It's, as I say, it's you have everything's either mobile versions, fillable PDF versions, leaf print and play versions. So you have a lot of it. You get your core rules, your monster books, your NPC books, spell making, world building, dungeon building. It is just an amazing level of things in here, and plus the Italian and Portuguese versions are out too. So
yeah, there's some and there'll be some more language versions coming out too.
Right. Cool. Perfect. Well, Dirk, you know what? I always have so much fun chatting with you about your work. So thanks again for coming back on.
I enjoyed chatting with you too. I appreciate you having me on. It's fun. I have a good time doing this. So. It's my favorite color is like hunter green.
Hunter green, is that a good? Well, that's too bright. Let's see.
Yeah, that's good. That? That's good. Yeah, that looks good.
All right. Yeah. There we go. All right.
Specialized.
Yeah, you personalized it for you, Dirk. Mm-hmm. There you go.
Personalized. Yeah.